as Norberto said, I've been working with him. I worked at Telefonica R&D before I moved to Skyscanner. And I did lots and lots of projects with MongoDB, and I love it. I really love it. And this is a story, the love story of MongoDB and I. Here I will need something like... I started with MongoDB 0.8. However, you know that sentence of, it's not you, it's me, and I'm sorry, I have to leave it. And yeah, we didn't continue. We were in a project and we were evaluating different NoSQL technologies. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. 0.8, as you can imagine, is really, really old. And we tried, and we had issues. As I said, it was not MongoDB, it was us, but it ran out of memory, the machines where we had it, and suddenly it started working, so it was not mature enough. Okay? However, later, we continued the same project. We took, we evaluated different technologies, like Asterdata, MongoDB, other NoSQL stuff, which is worse than MongoDB, of course. And later, we had issues, and we had to go back to MongoDB, because we were like, either we managed to make it work, it was working. Actually, this project, for instance, is still working in UK, in O2, and in Ireland, in O2, and all the customers' profiles, permissions, and permissions and preferences. Yeah, you see, he worked with us. Are stored in that system that we implemented with Oracle. But when we went to a different country, we had issues because we wanted to do even more hard stuff with the storage, and we had issues. So we moved to MongoDB. At that time, it was 1.6, but when we finished the development, it was 1.8, so we went to production with 1.8, and we were super happy. And since then, I never left, because I was super happy, and that's when I fell in love, and I really enjoyed working with it. Because it's well, you will see why. You will see why, okay? But the bad thing came like 6 or maybe a bit more than 6 months ago when I changed my job and I moved to Skyscanner, and there they are not using MongoDB. Ooh. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Who was that guy? Yeah, I'm sorry, but we are with Postgres. And I'm really sad. I'm really, really sad because I miss a lot MongoDB. And I will explain you why. For instance, dynamic schema, or as yesterday I saw in MongoDB's website, flexible schema. I don't know why you call it now flexible schema.
We are posh people.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, it's fame and so on, and then they get posh. This is a screenshot of their website, and they say, data modeling introduction. Data in MongoDB has a flexible schema. Unlike SQL databases, where you must determine and declare a table's schema before inserting data, MongoDB collection do not enforce document structure. The important thing is here. MongoDB collections do not enforce document structure. What's a collection? Quick survey. How many of you have experience with MongoDB? Raise your hand. And completely newbies? No experience? You didn't raise your hand with one of the others.
Let's study a mock course of MongoDB.
Okay, then you are maybe the other. Okay. So collection is the same as a table. Let's say it this way, in the jargon of MongoDB. Okay, so the tables don't have an enforced structure, and documents are rows or single, rows. The typical rows you have.
That's documents.
So why I love it. This is one of the reasons why I love it, because databases, collections, and attributes creation on demand. And why it's great? Because it's really useful when you are running tests and when you are developing, because your work is develop something, or at least mine it is. How many of you are developers or not sysadmins or DevOps? So your work is developing. So you enjoy having something which you can work with pretty fast. This is the way to do it. You don't have to worry like, did I create the table and the database, and did I give permission to my user? I don't know, or the test failed. Oh yeah, because I added a new field. No, don't worry about it, because it works. And it's great, and it helps you to work faster. And that's what I want. I want to work faster and be more effective. And this is one of the things that I really enjoy. More things. Attributes, as I said, don't have predefined or fixed data type. What does it mean? That it's not an int. Imagine you implement your database, your storage, and you have a requirement, and you have, let's say that you have a website, and you have scoring of the things that you have in your website. And that the score is an integer number. And then the typical business guy comes and says, no, integer is not good. We want float. And then it's like, whoa, I have to make an alter table, deploy it in all the fucking environments, and cross the fingers. No, it works directly. That's great. And the integer and float example is the easiest one, but there is a better example. Imagine that you have a URL, and you know that a URL maybe is a string, but maybe later you want to split the string in the protocol used, in the host, the port, the prefix, and the URL, and maybe the query parameters and everything, and that becomes an object. No problem, you can do it with almost zero change. At least zero changes in the database, which is great because you don't have to worry about complex migrations and, whoa, we will have to migrate it, and then we have to... How do you migrate your stuff in SQL databases? It's like, what do you do? Any volunteer here? No? Is it painful? Raise your hand, is it painful? It's painful. Here, it's not so painful. Yeah, of course, you have to control it, and you have to change the part of the code and the software, yeah, of course, but at least it's one thing to worry less. That's great. That's great. And also, again, it helps you fast develop. And this is a bonus, but how many of you use dynamic languages? Not strongly typed? Let's say it this way. How many of you? Few of you. Whoa, then forget this. I didn't say anything, but Python is good. No, seriously, it's the perfect love story. Both things together fit great because the same example applies. Maybe the thing of the integer and the float. And with a dynamic language, you don't have to worry about the storage, and you don't have to worry about the implementation. So win-win. But okay, let's continue. If this thing goes, yeah. So it's evolution. It feels like evolution, and maybe it's not so obvious when you go from your traditional, strictly typed, slow and boring relational database, and then you move to MongoDB. Maybe you don't see it, but believe me, when you go the other way after 4 years, you feel really, really, really sad, and it's like, oh come on, this is painful. How could I have been lots and lots of years working with traditional SQL, with schemas and everything when I had this? Let's say, well, I didn't have, because I tried 0.8 and it wasn't good. But nowadays, oh, it's horrible. Seriously, it feels like, in the analogy of languages, I'm sorry for the non-dynamic languages guys, but I'm sorry. But moving from MongoDB to Postgres, like my case, It's like moving from a dynamic language to a strongly typed language. And even worse, it's like moving to C. Yeah. No, not kidding. My 2 or 3 first years after university was working with C at low level and even some assembly. So I know what I'm telling you. And I say C because MongoDB has another great thing. And the another great thing is the advanced data structures, which you don't have in other storages. And that's awesome. Let's check this example. Maybe that's weird, especially for the ones which are new with MongoDB. This is a document. Looks like a JSON because actually you store binary JSON inside MongoDB. And this is the equivalent to a row in an SQL database. Okay? So maybe if you turn it, you will see like columns, and this would be one column, another column, another column, and another column. Okay? This is one document, one row. You have the ID, and you have a username, and contact. When you have a contact, another document, or an object, or however you want to call it, a subdocument, or nested document, or embedded subdocument, like this is a screenshot again of their database, of their website. And here you have phone and email, and maybe later in the future you add, I don't know, any other ID, Facebook, or whatever you want. No problem, you come here and you add to this subdocument the new field. That's awesome. And the same here, access, level 5, group depth. Maybe later you want to add more groups and then you convert this thing to an array, because you also have arrays. Here we are only seeing subdocuments, but you can also have arrays. And in a single operation, as you just explained, you can do a single operation which comes here and append something to this array. Just a single operation, you say append to this array, in this document, this field. And then, if it was an array, instead of group an array of one element, you would append a new thing there. That's great, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's why going backwards, as I said, feels so bad. So that's it, nested documents, arrays of nested documents, and all sorts of complex structures. Everything is a single document, a single row in the SQL database. Of course, up to 16 megabytes, but come on, if you are able to fill 16 megabytes, maybe you should think again your design. Okay? Don't abuse it so much. So, this is amazing. This is amazing because who is the guy which invented the relational thing? Come on, we are working with all the developers. Let's try your hand if you work with object-oriented languages. I think all of you except the hipster of the functional languages. Come on, so you are working with your object-oriented world. And then you try to fit your object-oriented data inside a relational-oriented storage? Come on! That's horrible. That's horrible. And here you don't have this problem. That's great. You have an object and you create a document which maps all the content of your object. Your user has posts. No problem. That's an array inside the document of your user. That's great. You have contact details, no problem. You add them inside the user. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Because suddenly you really forget this thing of converting your objects to the relational world and then here I need a table. Because how do you implement a one-to-one relationship in an SQL table, in an SQL database? You need a table in the middle. And then you need 2 joins. Woohoo! Let the join party begin. So yeah, this is it. Okay? Now clash of object-oriented world versus relational world. Because object-oriented and documents fit perfectly. That's great. You really enjoy working with it. Yeah, and the next thing. You completely forget of joins. You really completely forget of joins. And how many of you are DBAs? Or consider that most of your daily work is database admin and these kind of things? Okay, you are nice people. Yeah, you know that thing somebody say of DBAs like the dictatorship of the projects. And no, you're not gonna do that in my database. Because why? Because joins are really dangerous. Yeah, you can really harm the performance of the database with joins. And if you do a join, you need a new index for the join, and then the index takes the space, and each time you insert a row, it's slower, and then no, you don't need it. And in some cases, this is the trick, the normalization. It's like you study in the college and they tell you, no, you have to convert your objects to relational, then you have to normalize, and then you have to be really good doing this. No, forget it, and normalize, and use MongoDB, and then you will be happy. And sometimes you may need them, but the good thing is that you do it in software. Maybe now it's like you want, I will blow your mind, but yeah, you can do them in software, in your code. Yeah, why? Because you do one query to MongoDB, you do another query to MongoDB, you compute it in your software, in your code, and it's faster than doing all your joins in your SQL traditional database. It's even faster anyways. But if you do a good schema design of your database, it's really difficult to need to do this kind of operations. Maybe the biggest challenge here is changing your mind to be focused to the new paradigm, because it's a completely new paradigm. So I said moving from strongly typed to dynamic, but here it's even harder, and it's completely opposite. And it's really opposite. And maybe that's the biggest problem. If you read this, you could think, come on, a storage and no joins, this thing is bad. No, it's just changing the mind. And it's difficult, yeah. Maybe the first time, it takes a bit of time, and you won't like it, or you will still have your previous focus of more relational stuff. I have seen like a collection only to keep the relationship between two other collections, because that's what you did in SQL. No, you have to do it. You have to think in a different way, and it's completely changing it. That's difficult. That's really difficult. And I really understand, and even for me, it takes a lot of time. But maybe in 4 years, you are here telling the same. I hope so. The show? Because I said lots of no, and the good thing is a no SQL. That's a great thing. Just in case my speech was not noted. Let's continue. The API, or query syntax. You're really posh, guys. This is, well, it's really difficult to read, but this is the query commands and the data operators, and you can do something like update this document and set this value 25 to the edge. For instance, this row here. Okay, update the document with the name A. So you are telling the document which has A as name, I want you to set the edge field with the value 25. Or unset, and you remove the field, because as it's dynamic, you can remove fields or add fields. And maybe you have documents with different structure. Some of them have some fields, and others have less fields. It's not a problem. And here we saw set, but you have and set on insert only if you're inserting, because you can do find and modify, or rename, or increment. That's great. Increment. Say increment this counter when you increment a value. It's great in a single operation. And well. Or as I said, add to set, or push, or pop, or pull out. Remove items which match a query statement. Adds an item to an array. This is the one I was telling you previously. You have an array inside the document, and you say, I want another thing, because it can be value, a document, whatever. One other thing inside the array, inside a certain document. You do the query, this is the query part, or the matching part. You say the document with the name equals to A, push, this is add to an array, this value. But it doesn't. You have to go to the table, add the fields to the table, and then go to the table mapping the relationship 1 to n, and add all the IDs of both tables to have the mapping. No, you just do update, push, that's it. So neat and simple, yet effective and powerful API. I really love it. And okay, one good thing, that's true, one good thing of SQL databases is that they have SQL. And it's the same. Is it the same? Really? Is it the same? No, it's not the same, because then, well, in Oracle you have these things, and in Postgres you don't have the absurd, and in the other one you don't have something. So yeah, the basic is the same, but when you want to do some minimum, not advanced, but medium level things, you start seeing differences. And then somebody comes, that DBA guy, and tells you, no, in Oracle you have to change this and do it this way because it's faster, because blah, 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 because I have a lot of degrees and titles and diplomas in the wall of my office. I'm doing this joke because there is no DBA here, right? Don't want to offend anybody. The video is not recorded.
Hope so. It is.
It is.
So, I consider it to be a human-friendly API. You want to push, you push, and you do it. And it's great, and it's really simple and powerful. It's this. And yeah, it's scary. It's scary. You saw it. How many of you is the first time you see it? Few of you, well, and how do you feel? Maybe it's like, I don't get anything, and what's this? Where is my select, please? Yeah. All of us here had the same feeling. All of us. But it's way easier to get used to this syntax than to the SQL. And the learning curve is not so difficult, I promise. It's as I said, you have to change your mind, and maybe the most difficult thing is start thinking in documents, set collections. That's the most difficult thing. And once you understand this, then all the query syntax will feel like, wow, it's perfect for this document-oriented work. Ooh, another one. If there were DBAs here, maybe I could not show this one. Because, why? Because in MongoDB the logic is out of the database. And your queries are implemented in code, real code. You code the queries. That's a typical thing you do with an ORM over an SQL database. Because how many of you use an ORM over an SQL database? Raise your hand. Really? The others don't use SQL databases, or really? Only a few of you? Okay, but the syntax is exactly the same that you get when you use a typical ORM on top of an SQL database. You call commands which translate to queries. Well, the query language is directly the commands removed. And that's what you have in your code, either in Java, in Python, in PHP, or in C++, or in C, or in .NET, or whatever. And that's great, that's really great. Because did you ever have the feeling of suffering the pain of, okay, I have this piece of code, this business logic, which does a really complex query, and it's not working, and how the hell do I test it? That's horrible. Yeah, you have code. At least you can ensure, or you can even, for instance, you can mock the driver. You can mock the queries and say, okay, when I call update, I want you to return this thing. When I call the set. And yeah, in other cases, you could do it with the ORM. But here, it's directly the real driver. That's great. Because also, there is a high risk that when you're working with SQL, at the end you have your ELSQLs, and your stored procedures, and your stuff inside the database, and believe me, that's really bad idea. If you are working with SQL, I'm not telling you to, maybe you won't move to MongoDB tomorrow, but at least try to avoid having the logic inside the database, because when it fails, it's horrible. And you have to go back to that guy with the diplomas in the wall, and beg for his help. And say, please. No, I felt it several times, and we even hired amazing super consultors of Oracle, which came and looked at all the queries and proposed stuff, and we did changes, and at the end, it still had issues, and it was horrible. Here, at least, you have the whole control, and it's really simple, the syntax, and it's really simple to use it. That's great, because you give power to the developers. And I'm not kidding, it's even useful to balance your team. Because, yeah, you need somebody with really good knowledge in MongoDB, but more or less everybody can work with it and can implement queries. Because it's really easy, and it's code, and it's not so complicated. Yeah. And also because it's documents which, as I said previously, are great to work with your objects. Next amazing thing, official drivers. Look at this. 11 languages official drivers perfectly support, and this is again another screenshot of the website, and with the Jira project. And you can go there and place a ticket and say, hey guys, I want this feature, or this thing is not working properly, or I'm having this issue. And they answer, they help you, you talk with them. It's amazing. And you can see the roadmap, and you can vote the tickets, and all these things. That's great. That's great. Have you ever seen a database with all this number of official drivers? Official? As I said, amazing super maintenance, fully featured, high performance. That's really great. You have to go to that repository somewhere with a guy which you get to love because implemented the driver with a feature that you need to work with that database. No, you don't need that. Okay, if you are in the Microsoft world paying a lot of money, yeah, maybe you don't need that. But in all the other cases, sooner or later, you have to install that weird driver that you found but helps you, and you cross your fingers that it does not fail. In this case, you have everything. They even have 2 more drivers for Go and Perl, which are not official, but they kind of help the maintainers. Is it right?
Absolutely right.
Thank you. Another great thing is compare the syntax across all of them. Let's even more. So, okay, every language is completely different, but they have 2 things. They have their query language, And they tried to map it directly to each language with the style of the language. That's great, because if you work in PHP, you program in a way, or in Java, or in Python. And what they do is that they take the API, they make it consistent across all the drivers, but they make the small tweaks necessary to fit the style of the language. That's great, because if you have to implement languages, which is, I think, easy in any medium to big project, that's great, because it's almost the same. When you are working in one, you change to the other, and you feel like if it was the same, suddenly you say, well, I changed language, then everything was perfect. That's great, because at least it's the first time I saw this. In other technologies, it does not happen. And also it helps you to learn even faster and faster and faster. And another zero. So I'm reading. This is my favorite one. I love this. It does not happen because in MongoDB it does not happen because the queries are code. And this one happen. And the last but not least, the performance. I will sum up with a sentence. I came for the performance, but I stayed for everything else. And I'm not saying the performance is bad. No. The thing is, the performance is so good that I never had to change again to another technology. Until I changed the job and I was forced to change the technology. But, omitting that small thing, since I started with MongoDB and it was mature enough, so actually yesterday I was searching and MongoDB people considered that MongoDB was not ready for production until 1.4. So when I started with 0.8, it was like we were researching different possible technologies and it was not. But since then, since I started working with it, and until I changed my job, all my projects were implemented with MongoDB. And we never had performance issues. Maybe the biggest issue, the biggest challenge was getting the developers, the newcomers, adapt to the big change that it implies moving from SQL to MongoDB. That's maybe the biggest challenge, but once you are aligned, you have great performance, and you have great development performance. And that's why I'm so sad. One day Norberto will come to my company and he's a really convincing guy. And most probably. So that's all, guys. I hope you enjoy. And thanks for being here and listening my love story. Any questions?
Solo para que tengáis claro, yo no he pagado nada a Pablo para que venga aquí a hablar de esto.
De hecho,
sus cosas, no había visto nada de esos slides, pero sí que
vengo obligado, que conste.
Eso es.
Yo le dije, pero a ver, si llevo meses sin usarlo,
Eso es.
¿qué demonios te voy a presentar yo?
Pues una historia de amor. ¿Podemos luego tener los slides? ¿Sí?
¿Qué?
Los slides sí que lo podemos tener. ¿Lo puedes publicar, Dol?
Cuando paras.
Vale. Para todos los ejemplos que habéis visto que había varias cajitas, sobre todo en el Wix, que están bastante interesantes de ver cómo se ha implementado, y también los dibujitos que ha puesto Pablo.
No tengo la primera intelectual,
No pasa nada, y eso ya nos fusilamos siempre. Lo publicaré en el Meetup y así pues lo podéis descargar y lo podéis mirar con más calma, ¿ok? Muchas gracias por haber venido todos. No os olvidéis de...